All right, welcome guys. Excited to have you back on the show again this week. We've been rocking out some challenges, doing all kinds of different things. Started the day off at the gym, and a couple buddies of mine were talking, and they're like, "Man, those challenges are tough, especially right now. 20 different challenges of the greatest things that I've accomplished in my life." One of them said, "Man, I stopped at 5." The other one said he stopped around 10, and they had to pause and they had to come back and recollect their thoughts. Interested to see how they do going forward, but we kind of talked through some ideas, and another guy joined the conversation. He's like, "Man, all my greatest accomplishments are about legacy and about helping others and less about me." And so wherever you are, I encourage you to write down your 20 greatest accomplishments you've ever accomplished in your lifetime, and see how easy or hard it is, and try to put it down in less than 7 minutes. Like, go as fast as you can, just so that it gets out of your head and you just dump it on paper and don't worry about the 20 being a limit. So anyway, we're having fun with the challenges. If you catch this a year from now, just do the exercise, have fun with it, engage with the Journey of a Christian Dad community on Facebook, and throw your input in there, and maybe there's some guys help you through it as well, or you can help some other guys with your openness and vulnerability and sharing your thoughts. So designed for um, helping others, and designed to help you grow and appreciate yourself. So sometimes we can like really, really be hard on ourselves. And the guys I was talking to this morning are super high performers. And so they wouldn't write anything down and like it was like the greatest thing ever. It was like world peace. And if they, that was their bar. But we can appreciate the wins, appreciate the victories, and recognize the fact that we've done some pretty cool stuff in our lifetime. And some guys go, "Wow, I've got an opportunity to do so much more if I just get intentional and go in a direction." So anyway, that's that particular challenge, and that was a fun one we did yesterday. And now we get the pleasure of meeting a guy who's becoming a good friend of mine. He's local here in St. Louis with me now. He recently moved to St. Louis, so excited to welcome Southern Belle to the program.
Thank you, Goulash. I appreciate it.
Oh, there it is, right back at me, right back at me. So I guess I'll throw in. So these nicknames came about because we actually met at a workout group. There's a group out there called F3, and it's a men's workout group. And we showed up one day on the same day at the same time, and him and I just connected really well. And anyway, I'll let you kind of share from there, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just a little bit of backstory. We moved to the area in July of last year. We bought our home in the St. Louis area. So prior to that, spent 17 years in South Carolina. Job opportunity came up, and so here I am in St. Louis. And yeah, as you mentioned, we connected in F3. Had some opportunities to not only work out together, but go grab some coffee and tell some stories and exchange some best practices or lack of best practices.
Yes,
as it relates to our siblings. So yeah, that's the backstory.
excellent. So with that, Southern Belle and I got to tell some stories, go back and forth. The nickname thing, you know how guys are when you get together, whether it's your hockey team, whether it's the military, and then after you get out of high school and college, hopefully you've got a group of guys that you can hang out with, and F3 has become one of those things. And so you like to come up with nicknames and give guys the business and that type thing. So I don't know the backstory on how you got the nickname Southern Belle, but it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of fell into that one. Just a little bit of background when you do get the nickname. The objective there, as Dan mentioned, is to identify you as something equivalent to a sports team member or things of that nature, where you don't necessarily use first and last names. And part of that process is to introduce yourself to the group of F3 members. And as part of that introduction, talk about embarrassing moments, talk about what you do for a living, you know, and anything else that might be relevant to the, you know, to them determining what your new name will be. And so at that point, I think I mentioned I just recently moved from South Carolina, and someone yelled out Southern Belle. And of course, my first response was, well, I'm not actually from South Carolina. And they're like, perfect, he doesn't like it. So, so I got it.
We had a new guy come the other day out in a different spot, and for whatever reason, when he came out, so picture somebody walking out kind of like powerful, and then he took his hands and raised them up in the air and instantly stuck them underneath his armpits, and he said, I something something something. And my eyes just lit up when I saw him stick his hands underneath his armpits. I'm like, Sister Mary Catherine Gallagher from Saturday Night Live, superstar.
Right.
And so all the guys are asking him questions, and he's getting into it. And I'm running around the circle. I'm like, no, like that SNL chick, like Sister Mary Catherine Gallagher, like that's it.
Right.
So he gets done doing his thing, and they're trying to come up with nicknames, and I just yell out, Sister Mary Catherine Gallagher. And they're like, that's it. And he's like, but I'm not even Catholic. And that sealed the deal. It was over at that point.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah. Word of warning to anybody that shows up to F3. Once you mention something you don't like, that's probably going to be related to your name when you walk away that morning. So
he got done, and he's standing there bewildered at how he got the name. And he goes, but it doesn't even relate to anything.
Yeah.
Oh, but it was awesome. It was awesome. So it's just great to have guys to have fun with and everything else. So with that said, you told me a story the other day, and it just took me in, you know, so you're a couple years older than me, not that much older than me. I set that stage because you're not a 25-year-old guy. You mentioned earlier to me that you've got a 25-year-old son and also a daughter who is
20.
And you've been married for
October it'll be 33 years.
33 years.
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you've got a pretty dang good marriage.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we sure do.
Like, you've figured out how to get through stuff. You guys have good conversations. You've got a grounding in Christ, you know, God's first, you're second.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, certainly 33 years, not, you know, without its set of challenges. And I think, you know, one of the things that we're, both my wife and I are very proud of is, you know, the fact that, you know, we've had some, you know, challenge, you know, on the child front, all the ancillary stuff that goes along with having, you know, family spread around the country, you know, sicknesses, health, all those types of things. And through thick or thin, we've worked through all of them successfully, you know, and up to and including coming here to St. Louis. Big decision, right? Picking up family, the house, and moving everyone here. And so, yeah, we've been around, let's say, with respect to challenges, you know, on the parenting, marital front, and then also, you know, just on the day-to-day aspects. And so, yeah, we've been pretty successful up to this point. You know, interestingly enough, we have a circle of friends where most of the folks that we started our married life with are now divorced and remarried, and, you know, in some cases divorced again. And not to take anything away from them, things happen. But, you know, I look at some of those situations and see some of what we've gone through in our lives, and somehow, you know, we've been able to keep this together. And so, yeah, it's great.
What would you attribute keeping that together throughout all the adversities and that?
Yeah, it's interesting question. I mean, you know, I think, you know, some of that's situational too. But we're from a thought process standpoint, my wife and I are probably, I would say, not necessarily in line, right? But we both respect each other's positions,
Mm-hmm.
and through the normal process of, normal process of working through these situations, respect where each other is coming from. And I think, people, married folks sometimes get caught up in their position, as opposed to solution.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, that's where we've come to at this point. I'm not suggesting that was a perfect transition over the last 33 years. It's happened in, in varying situations where, you can't come to a conclusion. But I would say for the most part, it's understanding that we're in a collaborative relationship, that we both have, we both offer value to this relationship, and respecting, each other's positions, opinions, and things of that nature. So, that's probably first and foremost. I think it's just very easy to get caught up in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
in some of these situations. So we try not to do that.
Yeah. So you can get caught up, people can get caught up in being right.
That's correct.
And that goes both sides, the husband or the wife. So there's a book out there called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's actually a terrorist negotiation book, which sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take the philosophies out of that and apply it in a whole lot of areas of life. One of the things he talks about in a terrorist negotiation is when you're kind of trying to move the other person into a spot or a position, you don't want them to say, "You're right." You want them to say, "That's right."
Mm-hmm.
So somebody had a disagreement with me the other day and sent me a note. Turns out the information the other person had wasn't exactly accurate and colored in a different way and everything. But I responded back. I'm like, "Hey, man, actually, here's kind of how that went." "Oh, you're right."
Right.
I went, "Got it. I hear you loud and clear. You're not going to listen to a thing I'm going to say from this point out. Got
Right.
it."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're looking for a, "That's right. Yes, that's right. That's what I was thinking. That's right." As opposed to, "That's not what I was thinking. You're right."
Yeah.
So that "you're right" gets you off a person's back. So we want to try to uh, emphasize with the person and get to a point of understanding where they hear you and respond with, "That's right." So it sounds like you and your wife both have that kind of "that's right" relationship where you're looking for commonality and emphasize. You can say the word.
Emphasizing.
Thank you. And how about commitment level before you got married? Did you have a discussion about "till death do us part," what that actually meant, and the commitment level to that?
No, we didn't. We were very young, right? We got married at 21. We were. I had my son around. My wife was 30 when we had our, first child, and I'll be honest. I think a lot of our relationship kind of happened organically. There wasn't a lot of planning involved in it. We knew what we didn't want. Let me just put it
Mm-hmm.
that way. From on her side, from her parents being split up, on my side, from my
Yeah.
parents being split up, from no relationship with children to, just a number of dysfunctional things that had happened throughout the years. In both of our childhoods, I think we both knew what we didn't want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if I'm being honest, we weren't really intentional about how to work through this, at least initially, in
Mm-hmm.
our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in that process, is I was talking to you earlier about, we did get involved in a church, and got into marriage groups and things of that nature, and the whole personality profiles and where
Yeah.
one
Yeah. Yeah.
person's
Yeah.
coming from and the other. So So I would say some of that we came across later in our marriage. And to be honest, I mean, I think earlier in our marriage, it was relatively easy. No kids, two, a couple that had a very good relationship. Both of us were in the military. We shared that, so there was a number of different things that we wrote on. And we were all over the country and all over the world before that, in some cases together, but, and as I mentioned, we're both in the service. So we had a lot of experiences.
Yeah.
And there was, at that point, it was more about us going forward than it was about, individually what we wanted to do, because we'd already done a lot of things. But yeah, 21's very young to get married, and I
Absolutely.
think I think you're all of the things that we know about today in terms of planning and finances and things of that nature, you don't really think about that at 21, right? Especially when you're both off on your own already, right?
Right. Yeah. My wife and I had a discussion before we got married, multiple discussions, and one of them was, and I was super clear with her. I'm like, listen, if and when I get married, like that's it. It's over. There's no alternative. There's no back door. There's no like, once I'm married, I'm married. Till
Right.
death do us part. And like, there's nothing that's so horrible that'll pull me out of the marriage. Like, and she's like, me too. I'm like, no.
I need more of a commitment than me too, right?
I want to know 100%. And so we had, discussions about like level of commitment, and we kept going back and forth. And, both of us had, I don't know how many months of conversations, maybe even years of conversations occasionally
Right.
about, hey, if we get married, like we're locked, we're hitched together. We're hopefully going to be equally yoked, which that normally doesn't happen. Usually it's unequal for a while, and sometimes things are going smoother and you're equally yoked. But with that, so I've heard from people that have made a serious commitment, like there's no back door, there's no way out of the marriage, that has been a key to having a long-term successful marriage, because you got to face the problem. So a lot of people have a problem and then they take off and leave. So with that, there's a story you and I talked about, and I'm so thankful that you're willing to just be open about the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing major, but it's one that happens, and it's one that, oddly enough, people younger that haven't had the strife to go through and aren't willing to face the difficulties, sometimes it leads to a divorce. Like, because you don't make reparations, you don't ask for forgiveness, and you don't have those conversations, or maybe don't even have the skills to have the conversations and are afraid of that type thing. So this isn't the biggest, craziest story in the world, but this one's a real life story. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of let you take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right. It isn't the biggest, craziest in the world, but it was equally as impactful as some of the bigger, crazier stories I have. But so just again, a little bit of background. So my wife and I make it a point to have date night every Friday night. So we'll go to a restaurant. We'll, if it's a concert venue, whatever it might be. So even if there's nothing spectacular to do, we'll go out for dinner. Just to have that set night of the week that we get together and talk and digest the week and things of that nature. So on this particular night, Friday night, date night, I think actually I may have been off of work that day, so we're able to get started a little bit early, and we decided to take a ride out to one of the wineries out in the Past Defiance area. And it was really great. We were listening to music and, talking and those types of things. But
what was the weather like that day?
Man, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. It was very sunny. It was just it was a great day, right?
So sunny, the music's on, it's just the right music, just the right
correct.
mood. Like you're both on fire, happy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we're heading out to Montel Winery, which is a beautiful place to just sit there and look out over the valley. So yeah, I mean, that, like, as you said, you set the stage perfectly. I mean, that, everything about that time period was great. And as we're traveling down 94, I had someone relatively close to me, on the backside of my car, and and they were there for a while, and that happens on 94. Sometimes it's a 2-lane road, and folks get a little anxious, and but this particular person was there for quite a while. And then there's a portion of Defiance that you come into where it slows down to 30 miles an hour from 55, and so that's what I did. And this is a double bar road, so there's
and right after the 30-mile-an-hour sign is a police car 50% of the time.
Right. Yeah, interesting point. Probably. I haven't personally seen one out there, but it'd be a great place for them to stop. So, so yeah, we got into Defiance. We slowed down to that 30-mile-an-hour mark, and that person that was behind me decided that he didn't want to slow down, and he blasted past me on a 2-lane road with double solid line, and so I threw him a honk, or maybe 2. I'm not sure what it was. I wasn't, there was nothing else coming out of my mouth at that point. There was just, I honked a couple times. And so as I mentioned at that point, everything shifted, right? Didn't matter that the sun was out, didn't matter that we're heading to a beautiful location, didn't matter that there was great music on the radio. My wife got very upset. And she got upset because she felt like I caused danger to us personally by honking at that person. So you get into these situations, and you hear about it quite a bit in the St. Louis area, other large metro areas, where this road rage and potentially harm comes to one or more parties, whether that's physical, whether it's a gun or things of that nature. And so all of those things immediately went through her head. And my position was that guy deserved it, right? That guy deserved to be honked at. As a matter of fact, he probably deserved more, but what was within my capabilities at that point in time deserved to be honked at. And so, as she was explaining this to me, and she was upset, and I was explaining my position back to her, we arrived at an impasse, and that impasse probably lasted for the next 8 miles on that road, roughly 10 minutes or so to get out to Montel from there. Neither of us talked. I could feel how upset she was. I was upset that she was upset, and it rode out like that until we got out to the winery. I might have said a couple words in between there, like, where is the turn, or is the turn coming up, or something of that nature. But it was just a very tense situation after that. And then we got to the winery, and we went to sit outside, and still at that point I was somewhat defiant in terms of me being right versus her being right. And so at some point during the evening, maybe within the next hour or so, I think we talked through it a little bit, and but I still didn't acknowledge what I had done, right? Or the fact that I potentially put her in danger by what I did. And I think the very next day, if I remember correctly, you and I were talking at the coffee shop. And I'm not even sure how the topic came up. I think I said, it was date night or something. And I said, I went, it didn't go so good last night. And so I explained the story to you. And, at some point, in that conversation, you just mentioned, man, she's looking to you for her safety. And that safety is not always physical safety, it's emotional safety. And that's probably why she reacted, the way that she did. And so bing, there goes the light bulb. And so I think you and I talked through that a little bit more, and her and I at some point after that, had a couple other conversations about it, but I understand it, right? But it was a very, if you look back at that evening starting and how perfectly everything was going, and how nice of a day it was, and it's our Friday and it's our date night, and how something like that, where you're, and she's right, potentially putting somebody in danger. No real benefit to me honking my horn, or whatever you choose to do, waving your hand out the window, or slamming on your brakes. No real benefit to anyone. That benefit is to me at that point in time. So
yeah.
yeah.
So flip the switch. Your wife's driving. She honks at the guy. You're in the passenger seat. You're like, give him the business, honey.
No, no. I'm not normally a horn honker. So, she is.
Okay. Okay.
But in the situation where it's required, someone's drifting into your lane.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
but say she's in the same situation and you're in the passenger seat. What thoughts could run through your head at that point?
Almost the same, probably.
Really? So you feel like, hey, honey, what are you doing?
Yeah, only because I'm no longer in control of the vehicle that we're in, right? So
there's the guy thing, the control.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, and but yeah, I'd likely have the same reaction, especially from her, because I wouldn't expect her to do it. And she is right. Like, when there's a dangerous situation where your horn is going to acknowledge that, hey, you're moving into my lane, or you're doing something like that.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, I might have the same reaction, to be honest.
Okay.
If she did it in that situation.
There you go. Yeah, I might have the same reaction with my wife as well. I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on that moment at the time. But
yeah, exactly.
I certainly wouldn't necessarily think about, the potential road rage and shooting and all those type of things, because typically the women aren't the ones that ram into cars and things like that, where typically that's a few of my guy friends actually have done that, have been kind of assaulted with a vehicle, and at the same time they went aggressive back and bumped into people on the highway, which I'm like, what? Why would you do that? Like, I don't know. I just flipped a switch.
Yeah. But as you mentioned earlier, I mean, this is a very, very simple situation, which turned things, from a night out or a relationship perspective, turned it pretty upside down relatively quickly. So yeah, and the conversation you and I had the next day, was pretty insightful. I don't know that we remedied this even on that Friday evening, after we got home. I think we talked about it a little bit. I think I reluctantly apologized. Not the "you're right, that's right," situation. But and I think after I came home that day, from our workout, or the coffee shop at least, it kind of, the light bulb went off when we talked about it.
So a couple of things we talked about was, as men, we're supposed to be the protectors, we're supposed to provide, we're supposed to love our wife, and with that we need to provide safety and security. So physical safety, emotional safety, and security. And sometimes that light bulb just doesn't go off, like, oh, there's safety and security that I should have been providing in this certain area, in this certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Man, did I goof that up. And so it's just really cool conversation going back and forth, and to see you go, huh.
Right.
That's right. That's what it was.
Right. And I think we meld all of those things together, right? Guys sometimes think about everything as physical security, like my action for that person that was doing what they were doing was part of, physical, but it certainly wasn't part of emotional, and really wasn't part of physical, right? It was really just a reaction on my part to the situation. It wasn't going to add any value, in the end of the day. So,
Right. Right.
so yeah.
Interesting that in that situation, if I feel like I need to respond in some way. Years ago, I switched because I saw plenty of guys get mad and finger pointing, and sometimes they'd give them the one finger salute and things like
Hmm.
that, and
Hmm.
maybe it was a fist or whatever. And I'm like, I just don't like that reaction, and I'm not quite sure what to do. So I switched, and I literally started waving and smiling as big as I could at the people, and
Hmm.
laughing sometimes.
Hmm.
And it's kind of funny when somebody makes a mistake driving. They're not being an idiot necessarily, but they just make a mistake. And instead of being aggressive with them, you laugh and joke with them, and they look at you and catch you in the eye, and they start laughing like, I'm so sorry. Like
Right. Right.
I really goofed up. That was my fault.
Yeah.
And the situation turns out and everybody leaves like kind of laughing about it and in a elevated spirit, as opposed to aggressive and angry and then take it out on the next person kind of a thing.
Right.
So I don't really run into that situation anymore. And that, however, I absolutely goof up time and time again with small things with my wife. And even at this age, I'm still learning how to love her better. And as we grow and get older, there's new situations. So you got to learn how to step into that role, every day. Every day there's
Right.
something new.
Yeah. That's right.
So
Yeah.
just because you got 33 years experience of doing it, maybe 32 years of experience of doing it really well and 1 year of goofing stuff up,
Yeah.
whatever the record is. But
Yeah. When those
it's like,
types of things come up, I think you feel like you're at year one sometimes. Like, wait a
yeah,
minute, come on.
yeah, yeah. And when
33
struggles,
years should have come for something, right?
yeah, yeah. And when the new struggle comes up, you can look back and go, okay, hey, we've had some success with some things.
Yeah.
Quite confident we can walk through this one, or,
That's
what
right.
have you. But sometimes it's really helpful when you can figure out ways to get to the resolution and feeling good again quickly, as
Hmm.
opposed to missing out on what would have been an awesome night with a
That's right.
sport like that, because those opportunities don't come up every week
No, they don't. They don't.
where
And
everything's just perfect.
right. That's right. Yep. That's right.
There we go. We got it. That's right. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No, not you're right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a few thoughts as we were talking today. So we can do like really cool things, or be at a high emotionally, being connected with our wives. One thing that the devil doesn't want is a great relationship between a husband and wife. And that's terrible, because if there's a great relationship there, chances are we're going to be able to pass that down to our kids. Our kids are going to be able to model that, and it's going to keep going forward. So when there's a time and a place and there's a crack, he jumps in. So it takes you from a
Right.
point of super high emotion, everything's wonderful. And here it is. I'm going
That's
to
right.
send this guy and cause him to do something crazy and get Southern Belle just hacked off.
That's right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And there's countless examples of that over our years of marriage. This is, one of them where, everything's just going great, and you can't imagine how it's going to be ruined. And there you go.
Yeah.
Something relatively, um, you know, simple, I guess, in the end of the day, horn honk,
Mm-hmm.
turns into somewhat of a ruined evening, where it could have been, a great time together, right?
My guess is for the next 50 years, you're probably not going to fall into that same mistake again.
I don't think so. No. I'll make some others, but I don't think I'll make that one again.
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea of this podcast, was just to get you guys to think through some things so that you can be prepared for the situation when it shows up. So when either the devil sees the crack, or I always joke around that guys are just big, dumb animals. We're really simple.
Hmm.
If we haven't seen the play happen yet, sometimes we can fumble it and goof it up. Or if we've already seen the play, if we've already pictured it in our head, if we've gotten prepared, then we can run a more successful play, and just make it happen. So it's one of those things when you practice communication with your wife, when you study a bit, when you, as you said, connect with other people that are going the right way, we can run these plays more effectively more often and have a even better relationship with our wife, and have great winery trips with our wife, as opposed to ones that should have been great, but we've got a different story the next day.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. You guys were able to recover the Saturday and have a great day. And then Sunday, of course, went well also. So,
That's right. With your help, my friend.
yeah,
You,
got one.
you gave me
Got one.
the coffee shop education.
Got one. I can mark that down on list of 20 greatest things.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, have you got anything that you'd like to add into the show? Maybe some advice for guys in general, or just anything.
Yeah, and I guess if I had to, you and I were talking about the 20 greatest accomplishments. I would, aside from my children, I'd have to say being together with the same person for almost 33 years is certainly one of those. You know, I think from a entry into marriage to the kind of the midpoint to adding children into that to work and all the other kind of day-to-day um, you know not necessarily issues but things that come with it with life. I think people get caught up in perfection. I think they want they expect a perfect marriage. They expect their family to be perfect, and maybe perfection's a strong word, but as soon as that's broken, as soon as something happens to crack that, the first thing in my observations with some folks that are either newly married or even folks that I know that that had been together for some time, they want to jump, right? They want to, it's time to bail out. This is too much. I'm not going to be able to handle this with this person, and it's time to move on. And so those opportunities are going to, I shouldn't call them opportunities. Those situations are going to present themselves, right? And at that point, you have, you just have to think long and hard and pray and in those situations, work with your spouse to attempt to make things better, to fix that particular problem or those issues or whatever they might be, whatever struggles you're going through. Because in the end of the day, it takes work to keep a marriage together. It's relatively easy to check out of one, but the outcome of checking out is usually not very pretty.
Yes.
For a number of reasons. And so again, I think the primary message from my perspective is, put the work in, understand that you're, from a spousal perspective, you're going to have varying opinions, you're going to have varying needs, you're going to have, one side is going to be stronger than the other in terms of, how they do life, and ideally they complement each other. So that's my perspective, and I think my experience with some of the folks that I know that are close to me is some of those issues that I've gone through or we've gone through together with our children and other challenges that have come up have caused some of those folks to split.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just the acknowledgement that this is a work in progress, as we just talked about with my simple story.
Yeah.
And every day there's going to be some challenges. Some of them are going to be greater than others, and I can guarantee you that better together.
Yes, absolutely. So you bring up a great point. So one of the mottos that's in the Facebook community that we have is progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So just get better every day and work on getting better. Perfect's the enemy of done. So you'll never complete a task if you're going for perfection.
Right.
Or you'll only complete a few.
Yeah.
Get close, and you can always
Yeah.
perfect, work towards perfection after you've kind of turned the page, when you realize, oh, hey, here's that one more thing that made the project better. But and then expectation also. So we expect perfection. This is what I expected. I didn't tell anybody what I expected. Things coming different down the pipe. I'm holding on to being right. I'm holding on to what I want. And it's different. And we get angry about that.
That's right.
Well, nobody else is even in agreement or understanding or communicated with of what you expected, what the vision for life was, what a wife is supposed to do.
That's right.
I
That's
never
right.
told her that she's supposed to do the dishes on Friday, but man, I'm upset about that.
I would never say that one.
But like, maybe your mom growing up every Friday did the dishes and then, put them away. Maybe that was her habit.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday morning, you wake up and you're mad at your wife. And she's like, why has he been mad at me every Saturday morning for like 10 years?
Right.
Well, because the dishes weren't done. Didn't you know?
Right. Yeah. No,
No,
I
you
got you.
didn't tell me. But there's so many times where I'm talking from myself here. Doesn't my wife know? No, I never expressed any of these thoughts.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
right.
why would I expect to have something happen without having that communication about it? And that example is like the dumbest one I can possibly think of. However, in your own personal lives, in my personal life, I know I've had a whole bunch of dumb things that I just imagined would happen that didn't, but I
Sure.
never communicated and expected. So a bunch of different things there, but learn how to, express those type things and catch them before it puts a rift in your relationships and takes you to a spot where you don't want to be.
Yeah. It's men are generally not great communicators, right? I think you know, for a number, what did you call us? Big dumb animals?
Big dumb animals. We're just big dumb animals, folks.
Right, right. We're relatively simplistic, in some cases pretty binary when it comes to it's either this way or that way, and there's really no middle ground. So that is a work in progress, for me as well. I mean, it's something I have struggled with and will continue to struggle with, but um, you know, have certainly matured over the years from a marital standpoint, in terms of, that communication piece. What you mentioned is huge, right? Because it causes internal strife that no one else knows about except you. And if you never get it out, that stays there,
Yeah.
and festers usually.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. Coming from personal experience here.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we always like to close the show out with a challenge for the audience. So something that they can accomplish between this week and next week. So something they can do within 7 days that'll help make their life better in some way, shape, or form if they do the challenge. Have you got anything off the top of your head that you can think of to challenge the guys with this week?
Man, you should have prepped me with that one, Dan. 7 days. Gosh, man, I'm drawing a blank.
So I've got one.
Okay. All right.
I always try to have a backup one, kind of
Throw me
based on the
a
conversation we
lifeline.
have it. So, all right, if you want to take a shot at it, what about talking about safety and security with your wife?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The circumstances we were in that evening were very situational.
Right, right.
Right, but I'm sure you could draw parallels between other areas.
So I'm thinking preemptively.
Right.
So here's what I think the challenge could be. It could be something along the lines of, hey, honey, I was thinking, I know I'm here to protect, provide, love you, and I want to do those roles in the best way I possibly can. And physically, I understand protection. Like, when we go to the restaurant, I do certain things, act certain ways. When we do whatever, like, I'm looking out for us. I got
Mhm.
you. Okay, what are you saying? Well, guys oftentimes aren't as in touch emotionally as women are. And there's sometimes where maybe I don't make you feel safe and secure and I have no idea. So I want to point out to you that I would love to always, in 100% of every situation, always make you feel safe and secure physically, emotionally, and just with being vulnerable with me. So if there's something that comes up and I make you feel unsafe and unsecure, will you let me know? Just kind of something simple like that, which then gives her permission. so that she can express her thoughts and her expectations, so that, hey, Jeff, hey, Southern Belle, I really wish you wouldn't have honked at that guy. That made me feel unsafe and not secure. Uh-oh. What do you
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Well, all this. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. No, I'm glad you realize it now. Will you not do that again? I won't do that again, I promise. Hey, cool. Let's get to the winery. Like, let's,
That's right.
right back on track. Right
That's
back
right.
on track. So, um, having those kind of team conversations and teaming as a couple and as a family, understanding that you're really all going the same way. And you really do want to love your wife, and she's a priority, and you cherish her, and she's more precious than rubies or jewels. Like, and thinking from that perspective, and reminding your wife occasionally over time that it's not just I love you, it's also I love and care for you and want to always provide safety and security physically and emotionally. So she keeps hearing that repetition over and over, so that the next time she goes to question, she knows that it's safe and secure, and she can throw a question at you and not be attacked or have us be defensive. Allows her words to come in a softer kind of a way, as opposed to us defending our position and digging in and pounding on our chest. Don't you understand I'm right?
That's right.
Pride and ego. Pride and ego just gets in the way, and it stinks, but I still run into pride and ego. And when I can peel away from that, and other people can see the pride, and oftentimes we can't see it in our own self until somebody else points it out, or we reflect and look back and see it. So that's the challenge this week, folks. That's the challenge this week, is just have a real conversation with your wife and let her know that you desire to give her safety and security in every way all the time, and give her permission to come back to you and point it out if you don't, because chances are we're not aware. Jeff shaking his head, taking it
I
in.
am. Yeah. I'm just taking it in. That's a great challenge, man. That's a good one.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing that, and just looking to help other guys, and appreciate you letting me know that resonated with you and made your weekend better than it would have been.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for having me on. Happy to share the story. And then if I've learned anything, you won't get the same story again from me.
All right. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Well, I appreciate it a bunch. And guys, thanks again for listening. Again, feel free and throw some reviews on Apple Podcast or Audible Podcast. That would be great. Love to see what you guys type. Glad to read your review on the show in the future. And feel free and share it with somebody. Could be a friend, a neighbor, a relative. Could be a son in your case. Southern Belle, throw that to your 25-year-old son. It's like, my dad's perfect.
No, he's under no illusions, man.
That's right. He's past 8 years old. So
That's right. That's right.
yep. Well, fantastic. I appreciate you greatly. And thanks everybody for listening and sharing the podcasting community with those that you care about.